And there's no other workforce in our society that has 100% immunity.
Yeah, that qualified immunity, that's the thing that has to go. Like the fact that you have no recourse for your actions, that's another thing. You can't, a cop can kill you and they just walk away scot free. Like,
Yeah, that's my question. Like, so if you could give advice to Vice President Biden and Senator Kamala Harris about police reform,
mhm.
what types of reform would you suggest?
Yeah, well, yeah, I would talk to them about how policing started in the first place. Policing was started um, to strike terror and the fear of black people. That's how policing came about. So from the inception of police as you know it today, they started out, to scare the living daylights out of us. That's what they were put together for. This was to terrorize, control a certain populace of people. So to speak to, you know, Senator Harris and former Vice President Biden, I would say that we need actual police reform, not speaking about reforming the police, but actual reform. Do away with, implicit bias, which I know. So your point, Dr. Yancey, you probably can't do away with that, but you need to shake up the whole structure that is not working. There's no benefit for police being in your community when you look like us. And them having qualified immunity will go a long way to change that if you do away with that protection.
What do you
I,
think that would change? If you did away with qualified immunity, what do you think would change?
the basic way to get anybody's attention is to impact their money. And if you can sue somebody into the ground, I know it sounds a little generic, but realistically, if they are more accountable, like if you're talking about what's at risk for a cop. If a cop shoots you dead right now, they're going to get a paid vacation, and more than likely they're going to get off on whatever case that you have in front of them, and then they get to go about their business. So cops can shoot you even if they're fired. Let's go to the situations where they're even fired. If they're fired in one county, they can go to another county and become a police officer all over again.
That's a
So
fact.
a couple of things that you want to do away with. I'm talking to Senator Harris and Biden. You want to do away with qualified immunity. You want to do away with the ability to, if you were shown that you're not capable of doing this job, be able to get the same job one county over. Yeah, you don't even have to leave the state. If you kill somebody in one county, you can, in most states you can just move over to the other county and pick right up where you left off. But you have no recourse. You have to have accountability. Just because you have a badge and a gun does not mean that you are immune to the laws that you're supposed to be enforcing. If you shoot
Yes.
somebody without a gun, that is still murder. If you shot somebody in the back, that is malicious wounding, even if you didn't kill them.
Yes.
But you have no checks and balances. You have this blind support for police officers who are wrong. If you kill somebody, you shot that man. The man that was laying down on the floor, they got shot. The cop who shot him just got off the other day. He was laying out with his hands up. They shot him laying down, and people still looked at that and said he did nothing wrong.
Wow.
You have to change that whole mindset, and that's gutting it. In South Jersey, where I'm from in Camden, they gutted the whole police department. They came in and they said, this is not working. So they fired every single cop that was employed at the police station. The ones that didn't have egregious marks on their record or, and a lot of, infractions and stuff, they were allowed to re-interview for their jobs, and they put new cops in place and it yielded positive results. And to me, that should be nationwide.
Yep.
To talk to Senator Harris and talk to Joe Biden, I would say specifically, you do away with qualified immunity. You get rid of this implicit bias. You stop having cops sitting in their cars all day just patrolling around, not getting to know the neighborhood. Matter of fact, you can take them out of the neighborhood altogether. But at the end of the day, they have to be held accountable. And it should be nationwide. Any interaction with the public, you should have your body camera on. Everything should be operational. I don't care if you're giving them a jaywalking ticket. Too many times cops have these interactions with people and their cameras are conveniently off. So you don't even get to see the whole story unless there's a civilian out there with a camera showing you what actually took place.
Yep.
Now, if I can stop you and cite you for not having a seatbelt on, then the cop should have his camera on. Why does he have his camera off in the first place if he's doing his job? It should protect both of them, both the civilian and the cop.
Yep.
The other thing I want to do is that protection wall, as far as cops not talking on other cops. because to me, there's an escalation. You don't just start out with murderous intent. There was a time when you first had that forcible, overly aggressive arrest where you brutalized a suspect, and people who were your colleagues looked at that and they said nothing. And they allowed you to escalate to a point where I'm going to use my gun on the next time and shoot somebody. I don't think you just start out with, I'm going to put 7 shots in the back. There were other situations that led up to that that you could see a pattern that was going to be, okay, this person might not be qualified to do this job. You should have, even if it's anonymous, everybody been in a workplace where you have an anonymous way to report certain things as being wrong.
Yep.
Whether it be, and you should have that in the police force. You can't just let them run around. Just right now, they have no checks and balances. There is nothing that prevents a cop from doing anything they want to do because the penalties are so light. When's the last time you seen a cop be convicted of anything? Just think about it. When you see all these cases, you go back, Eric Gardner. You look at that. He was on tape being choked out, and what was the result of that? Nothing. We're going to see what's going to happen with George Floyd. We're going to see, hopefully, that'll, because of all the attention on it, it'll go in the right direction. But at the end of the day, we have to stop thinking that the cops are above the law, which is ironic when they're set to enforce the law.
Right.
One of the best things they did was take all those cop shows off TV, because another thing Dr. Yancey was talking about, we've always been in our head that it was okay to be a rogue cop. If you look at all the action movies and the stuff that we grew up on, the cops were always allowed to paint outside the lines under the guise of, it's for the greater good. Like, I'm going to circumvent the laws to catch this criminal. I'm going to go beat up people. I'm going to brutalize them and stuff. I'm going to bring this suspect in at the end of the day. And that kind of sticks in our subconscious that the cops, even though they're outside the lines, their intent at the end of the day is for the betterment of people. And time and time again, for the people that look like us, that's not what's happening.
They come at us by any means necessary, it seems like.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, just like with us, it's a societal thing though, because it's a trickle down effect from so many things that have been systemically embedded in their brains as it comes to dealing with us. We are not overly aggressive. We are not usually the ones who are going to attack a police officer.
Right.
You see all these other instances where people are spitting on cops. There was a gentleman the other day, the lady recorded from a car. We saw that one. He spit on the cop, had bumped the police car, got out, confronted the cop, and at no time did the cop go to reach for his gun or anything else.
I didn't see that one, but
Yeah,
that happens time and time again.
Yeah, he just told him to get back his car. I mean, he was face to face with this cop. He spit on him, everything. You can get a cop saying, "Oh, you spit on me," and a person in another car was recording the whole event. But it was just miraculous. The cop at no time saw this man as a threat. No matter how outrageous he was acting, he saw him as not a threat and let him go on about his day. Broad daylight, let's let him live.
I would like to add, I think if they would, when cops first go through training, I think they need to vet them psychologically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think they would weed a whole lot of them out, because like you said, it doesn't start with, I'm gonna shoot you in the back. It starts slightly, how they were raised.
Right.
So they can pick up on things like that, and they need to.
They should be able to. I don't see how you couldn't. We've all had to take aptitude tests and everything. And if you're going to do a job which literally it's going to be life or death that you're handling, wouldn't you want that anyway? Why is that not in place right now?
Right.
So we talk about reform. We talk about what Senator Harris and Biden need to do. Cops don't need more money. Cops are not underfunded. The police departments aren't underfunded, so you don't need to give them more money. I don't know how you train away racist intent. So I don't know how you take the cops that have been doing their job in a certain way and you just set them in a classroom or a seminar for a couple months and they come out reformed. And my thing is, if they have any of that, I know the police unions are strong in some states, but you have to do better, or take them out of those places where they're patrolling areas with people who look like us.
Yes.
Reassign them. You know what I mean? If you're not from the community, why are you there?
I agree with that so strongly. They already look at us as threats.
Right.
We talk strong as a people, and we know we talk strong as a people. And if you grew up in our community, you would see that.
Right.
But when we talk strong, they take that as a threat.
Right. And at the end of the day, if you look at who's more likely to do something, it's not us. Time and time again, it's been proven it is not us.
It isn't.
We just want to get home, and we have a right to be tired though. When you saw a lot of the athletes and a lot of grown men just broken down, just tore down, it is an exhaustive effort on a daily basis just to get home alive. The climate that we have now is so infused and charged with racist intent that you don't know if something real simplistic is going to end you. Because you're driving 45 in a 35, you might not make it home. That's the reality of the situation.
That is.
Yeah.
I will
Taillights.
say that our community are the only communities that have to talk to their black and brown sons.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because you have to have that conversation, as uncomfortable as it is, because you need them to survive. You know, just doing the normal things that everybody else does, you don't have that. You don't have that luxury. You have to pay attention. You have to be mindful of how you're moving in your car. You have to be mindful of how you're speaking to the cop. Your actions as if you're going to get out of the car. You just have to talk to your kids just to make sure that they're going to come home in one piece. Hopefully, hopefully. So reform is it has to be sweeping. It has to be nationwide. Just to get back to the question that Dr. Yancey asked, it definitely has to be nationwide, though. It can't be just a promise of change. It has to be actual legislation that's going to be put in place, that's going to set certain guidelines that are you just can't deviate from them. You have to, as you said, just put things in place for protections, not just fluff and not just pacifiers. These things have to be tried and true. They have to work. You have to have better police. You have to vet them better. And that background, like, you should have to have a certain amount of a degree to be a police officer.
What do you think about, because when you think about reform,
Mhm.
you have to think in ways that are different than what we do today.
Because what we do today is not working.
Not working.
Exactly.
So one of the things that I think is missing in policing is that trust, building that trust, having trust in who is governing and supposed to be protecting us. We should have
Right.
some trust. One of the things I always think about is, in order to build trust, you have to show trust.
Mm.
And by showing trust, you got to be an honest broker. One of the things I find so dishonest and just tears down the trust is, why does it take a video 6, 8, 10 months after an incident before you now want to investigate? That just tears down, because you've either hid evidence, you've lost evidence, you've mishandled evidence, or the evidence has just disappeared 8, 6, and 10 months later. So I think reform has to include some level of departmental trust.
Mm.
If there's because incidents could be accidents,
Okay.
but they don't look like accidents 10 months later. It looks like cover-up 10 months later.
That's good,
So
though.
you have to be able to announce that so-and-so has been suspended due to the fact that we need to investigate this incident that happened. That will bring a level of trust to the community, because it just happened yesterday. So rightfully so, you've suspended an officer because we're saying, hey, this is traumatic. It's traumatic for the person who is either no longer living, like his family who is no longer living, or it's traumatic to the officer. So we need to pull you back. That's totally understandable by everybody in the community.
Right.
It's also understandable that this needs to be investigated. We don't know 100% what went on. So until we know, we're going to remove you. That is totally understood by the community. But what the community respects is that you thought enough of that person that is either no longer with us to investigate. Once you take 8, 10 months, hide or disguise an event, but once the video comes out, you're in uproar, like you want to be with the people. Now you want to investigate it. That's a level of dishonesty. That lets us know that justice was never intended. You're not an honest broker anymore. And it's very, very hard for me to see, with hardly no evidence and there's no people to, speak truth to power, that now we got to convict someone and we don't have all the evidence that we had the day after the event happened or the day the event happened. So I think that reform has to be some level of being honest brokers from the top to the bottom.
Mhm.
What it means at the bottom, you lose your job if you file a false police report.
Mhm.
That should be against the law. See,
Yeah.
because for us, it's against the law. If
Right.
you call the police and you file a false report,
Mhm.
that's a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
But for the police, that's like another day at the job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is this two standards, meaning you're not an honest broker. And we need that inside of reform. What are your thoughts, BlackHaze?
That's well said. Honestly, if you talk about police reports. You look at the police report with Breonna Taylor. It was nothing on there. Basically, her name, address, and that was a blank page where you shot a woman who was asleep 8 times. So I agree with you. The other thing, just to piggyback off what you're saying, though, Dr. Yancey, not just should they have to be held to a higher form of accountability with that during that action, but within a certain window of time, if you are an officer involved with a shooting, part of the other reform page I would want to go into effect would be that you have to submit to a drug test. You know, because we don't know what state of mind you're in when this took place. Did you have alcohol in your system? Did you have any other type of, whether it's prescription drugs or other type of things in your system that might have caused you to act in this fashion? You know, when I
And
drove, when I was a courier, if I had an accident, I had a 48-hour window of time where I was in my personal vehicle or the company vehicle where I had to submit to a drug test to make sure that I was in full
And
control
some
of my
people
conscience.
might ask you, BlackHaze, why would you even say that? And you know why we would say that? Because
Yeah,
the minute they kill a black person,
come
they
on,
dig in all of his veins and in his blood to pull something
come
out
on,
to
come on.
justify.
Yeah,
He on PCP.
yes, there you go, there you go.
But
They tried that with
PCP
Jacob Blake. They
don't
tried
mean
to say he was.
DOA. You
Yeah,
shouldn't have to be DOA just because you do PCP.
I didn't know that was a death penalty, death sentence. You know.
Yes.
Yeah. So
So
yeah,
yeah, they definitely should be drug tested. Exactly what
absolutely.
they do to the common people when
Come
they
on.
want to make an excuse or justification why you no longer should exist on this earth.
Yeah. The
Judge and jury at a moment. They are
yep.
judge and jury at an instant.
The
And
cop that
executioner.
Yeah, exactly. But with the cop that knelt on George Floyd, for example, he had 18 infractions on his record.
Yep.
Hmm.
Yep.
So how are you still gainfully employed
Yep.
with 18 serious infractions on you? How is that you're still doing the same job with 18 infractions?
Right.
No
Well,
no other there's no other place on the planet I know that you could be employed with that many infractions
Right.
in the time. And still be doing the same job. You know, you could be reassigned, sit on the desk, do something I don't know, park cars, but you couldn't still be a cop with a gun in your hand.
Right.
Obviously, that's not your strong suit. So definitely, Dr. Yancey, what you said, we have to weed it out. I think a lot of that would just also stop letting the police investigate themselves would be the
Oh,
other thing about reform.
I was going to say that, like, when it's time for an investigation, it should be independent all around, independently funded, independently led, independently managed, independent. Yes.
Because we're tired of that narrative. We investigated ourselves and we found out we did nothing wrong. On to the next one. And that's where we've been for decades. If you go back, just even if you go back, I was doing some YouTube stuff the other day, and I looked at the Rodney King video again. And you talking about that's in the mid '80s, and on video, as rare as it was back then, you saw these cops beat Rodney King for minutes on end, not trying to arrest him, just beating him just because they could. And then the backlash on that led to the LA riots because all the cops were let off. They were found not guilty, not responsible, when you could blatantly see this man is not resisting. You are beating this man, clubbing him, kicking him, stomping him. And then the all-white jury came in and said, nah, I think they were okay. They were just doing their job as police, and that's how LA got burnt down.
Yep.
So from then till now, we're still dealing with the exact same thing. The only thing is Rodney King got to walk away from his stuff. But now you look at it on tape, on police videos themselves, on civilians with cell phones just showing you this is what the police are doing. And it doesn't just happen in an isolated area. These are not outliers. It happens in every city, every state. You tell me a state outside of Alaska or, Butte, Montana, where this is not taking place. If you have cops and if you have a black community you have these episodes continually taking place. So that reform has to be specific, it has to be concise, and it has to be on a nationwide level. And it can't be just a campaign promise because I'm standing in front of this group of people. It has to be real. Kamala Harris, Biden, whoever's going to do it, that reform has to be swift. It has to be one of the first things in their first 100 days. This is what I'm laying out, and it has to come to fruition. Sweeping changes. You know,
But
even
I'm afraid that's not going to happen.
but that's what you asked about reform. That's what it needs. We've been doing this so long for so long. It has to be
Yes.
something drastic. It can't be subtle. It's not. This is not just now. This is not. It's just impacting our generation. This has always been going on. This is an acceptable part of society that should not be accepted.
And you know what I noticed for
That's
them to do that to their kids? They are making, like you said, Tiffany, the trust, but it's generations now. It's hitting generations. So now these little kids and just saw the police shoot their dad in the back. Guess how they gonna think of the police probably until they leave this earth, and they're gonna tell it to their children.
And for what? What was he doing that was so bad that required him being shot 7 times? And that officer, what is his risk? We don't even know that officer. We don't know what he looks like. If he walked past you right now, what's he doing? I know he had another incident they were talking about prior to this one. But the thing is that how are you still allowed to continue at the same pace? You have to have something type of check, like Dr. Yancey said, that stops you. Okay, this happened. So you don't even get a water pistol now. You just, you cannot continue in that fashion. You know, you saw the with the Ferguson riots and stuff. One of our friends that was in the military was having a fit because if you looked at how the cops were responding, not only are they dressed in paramilitary gear, but they had their fingers inside the trigger guard and then pointing them at civilians. He said, if you are properly trained, you know that's something that you never do, because that imagery. You as me, I know. When you were in the Air Force, you were a soldier, but it takes anybody. You know, John Q. civilian, anybody who sees a gun pointed at them, you're automatically going to have a strong reaction. Doesn't matter if it's a cop or somebody robbing you on the street. This person is putting your life in jeopardy just by pointing a loaded weapon at you. It does not make you feel comfortable about the cops. I don't know any black people who are happy or comfortable with the cops being on the scene in most situations.
I can say too, I used to be a cop in the military, and we probably did 3 to 4 months of training.
Okay.
Let me tell you what they did teach us. They taught us when you point a gun at somebody, you damn well better use it, and you better have good reason.
There you go.
And we were scared to use it. But you know what? That made us think before we could pull that trigger about what this is going to cause.
Right.
And if something did happen, as slight as it was, the first thing you were done, you were pulled. You sat in the back office and you worked. And that's how it should be.
I think Dr. Yancey said that too, or it might have been you, Google, but I don't even say if this is something that really is not the norm for you, you should be impacted greatly by it. You know what I mean? Like, you should not even be able to, even if they wanted you to go to work, you shouldn't be able to work because you should be so traumatized by the fact that you had to take a human life. Yeah. There shouldn't be any training for that has you, well, let me go get a cup of coffee and I'm just going to get right back to it. You should look at it as though this is something even though you might feel okay, I'm going to need some time. I'm going to need some counseling. I'm going to have to go talk to the therapist and get my head around what just took place, because whether I was justified or not, I've taken another human being's life. Not, oh, well, I'm on a little vacation. I'm just waiting to get exonerated so I can get right back to it. You know?
Oh, no, let me get my story together.
Right. She said, like that pause there. Why is it we can't ever see the police version of the video until, like you said, they're putting together their alibi, their lie, or it just doesn't give you a lot of confidence that the truth is going to come out. If I have video or something right now and I'm not going to release it for 6 to 8 months, I'm going to give it to you later after I've had a chance to go through it and see, work my story around what I'm actually going to show you, as opposed to, it should be a window of time, just release it. You have video, hey, that's not going to be tried by the court of public opinion, but at least let us see what took place, so we're not speculating and we're not enraged, or we're not thinking like we don't have any type of recourse for them killing us. Let us see the video. If there's nothing wrong, you don't have a problem showing it.
BlackHaze, I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
What did you think about first Trump's visit to Kenosha?
Oh man. So 45 in his tangerine self, he is probably one of the most disgusting individuals to ever hold office. Let me say that first and foremost. And he went to Kenosha for all the wrong reasons. He went to Kenosha because we're a little over 60 days away from an election. So he didn't go for any type of healing. He didn't go for any type of aid. He went for the optics. And I hate that part of politics more so than anything else because you have a hurt city. Because at the end of the day, 6 months, 8 months, a year from now, we will have Kenosha in the back of our minds, but there are people that still have to live there. They still have to deal with the cops and have to still deal with the aftermath of what took place. So for him to go and not do anything but exacerbate an already aggravated situation, he still hasn't even spoken the name of Jacob Blake. So why are you in Kenosha?
Mm.
You know, he's kind of siding on the way of the cops, and he's also siding with Kyle Rittenhouse is the gentleman who shot the protesters. So
Oh.
you're in Kenosha to cater to your base.
Mm.
So in other words, my take on that is he shouldn't be there. But then again, I don't think he should be at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. But that's just me. So his thing is to give you an optic as opposed to actually trying to help the situation.
Dr. Yancey, you have anything to add to that?
I agree. The city is trying to heal, and it would not be a time for anybody to be promoting themselves when a young man is still sitting in the hospital fighting for his life.
Right.
It's a narcissistic frame of mind for you to even think on yourself at that moment, and that actually is what he was doing. He was thinking on himself and how he can get people to rally around him during this time. So it's really selfish frame of mind that was, to even put that together.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I agree with both of you. And he could have whatever reason he came, he could have done it from where he lived.
Right.
And the problem wasn't that he went.
I think that was a problem also.
Because he's the president of the United States, and so if he was going to see that family, if he was going to tell everybody to calm down, if he was going to make statements to say that, right is right and wrong is wrong, and we need to get to the bottom of this, and let's support the family, let's not, loot our cities and streets till we find out some evidence where we need to go with this. If he was going to see that young man in the hospital, that's what a president would have done. That's what a president would have done. And unless that family told him not to show up, that really, it was a good thing to think to come if you're coming for the right reasons. Because everyone appreciates if a incident or accident turned into an incident, your president should stand up for you and show that, hey, I see you. I saw that on TV and I'm here. But it was all for the wrong reasons. Because Biden showed up too.
Right.
And again, if Biden came for the wrong reason, I'm going to say the same thing. If you're not coming for the gentleman that has caused us to even know that city on the map, if you're not coming for the right reasons, then I wouldn't have wanted to see Biden there either. But I'm pretty sure Biden contacted that family to okay for him to come before he even came. Because what's worse is to come to a city and the family then goes on public TV and say, I didn't even want him to come.
The officials.
I'm pretty sure he checked with that family.
Yeah, Biden did. He checked. He did the visit because he wasn't invited, but they were okay with him being there. 45 was told not to come by the governor, by other elected officials to not come there because they didn't see a way his visit was going to yield any type of positive result. It's going to make a bad situation worse because of his base and because of his mindset toward things like that.
Sure. Wow.
Dr. Yancey said right. As a president, though, you would think that his visit would be more healing and more, bringing people together. But he is the most divisive man that's been in office in quite some time. That's just his thing. That's his base. That's why he doesn't speak Jacob Blake's name, let alone go to see him in the hospital.
Yeah,
He won't say his name, so you know he's not going to go visit him in the hospital. That's not going to happen.
true. His credibility just isn't present for the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sad. We have no leadership in our country right now.
It's on both sides though. It's easy because 45 says a polarizing figure just to look to him, but you have to realize that there are politicians on both sides of the aisle that are conveniently silent. He's almost 4 years now. Like, he should be challenged. If you remember when President Obama was in office, even in his own party, he was challenged on so many things. I mean, he was allowed to get. He was able to get a lot done, but even in his own party, he was challenged on a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
The current administration pretty much runs roughshod over everybody, and everybody's quiet. The Democrats are quiet. Who's the strongest Democrat that challenges him on a regular basis? You tell me who that is, because I don't know. Who is it?
Well, why do you think that is that nobody is challenging?
Well, for me, at the end of the day, it's no such thing as a Republican or a Democrat to me, a conservative, a liberal, or moderate. They're just politicians. So if you've ever had a boss that was inept, that pretty much allows you to run free. So he's so unqualified for the position. Whatever agenda that the politicians have, they get to run it because he's not paying attention. So they're okay with him being the figurehead and all the attention being on him because they're getting to do whatever it is they want to do without any checks or balances. That's why
you can't say that for Democrats, though, right?
Democrats challenge him. Well, who's the strongest Democrat that has continuously challenged him, called him out on the carpet? Even the Democratic Party right now, the best ticket they could put together was Biden and Kamala Harris, the 75-year-old white man and Kamala Harris. You had 4 years to plan for this from 2016 to now, and with all those people out there, the strongest candidates you got, we still get back more of the same.
Right.
It goes back to like police reform. Joe Biden is a product. He was born in the 40s. What new innovative ideas is he going to have in office? He was somebody who was a part of the crime bill, back in the 90s. So what is it new he's bringing to the table except for Kamala Harris? And Senator Harris, I know she has her detractors and everything, but at least she is a breath of fresh air. I don't know how active she would be as a VP, but at least that is more of a better sign of a change in the guard. It's one of those things where you're still getting more of the same. You look at politicians as a whole. You look at the Lindsey Grahams. You look at most of the politicians. They are pretty much the same demographic: older, wealthy, white men. So they can only give you their impression of the world based on their experiences, which limits everybody else because most of us aren't older, wealthy, one percenters. Mm-hmm.
That's true. I do think that, in fairness, we have a lot of our structure that had holes in it.
Yes.
Democrats cannot do more than the structure will allow them to do. They're powerless. And just until they won the House, 2 years ago, they just were able to function within the system that they all govern inside of. And Republicans was running wreck shop over it. In regards to, in 4 years, the best that we came up with, we had a 24-person field.
Right.
And I think the country needs experience.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton was the most qualified individual ever go from president 1 to president 44. The most qualified person ever, but they did not vote her in.
Yeah.
Then they got the most unqualified person ever, and they voted him in. Yeah. So you know what happens when you go all the way to the end is you have a knee-jerk reaction and you got to go all the way back. Yeah. We were looking for the most qualified person. Right. He definitely is qualified. Yeah. He's definitely qualified. I don't look for all of my answers in regards to black and brown person in Biden. I look for the people he put around him.
Okay.
Because he is a white man. Yeah. And so I don't think we should ever look for someone who's white to understand us.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't understand a white person.
Mm-hmm.
You can't put me as president of the United States and think that I can understand the plight of a white person, because I don't. But I'm going to put some people around me to speak for white people so I can have a clue of what's going on and what matters to them. So I'm not looking for Biden to have every answer. I don't, I know it's so easy we look at people and what they did 20 years ago, what they voted for. They may have with their own conscience in the moment, because I do mental health, and I say we cannot charge people for things they make choices of in the moment. If something's scaring me in the moment, I'm going to make a decision in the moment that 20 years from now, I can look back and say, wouldn't do that today. So in the moment, they're white folks are fearful of everything's going around. Well, let's put these laws in place. That should do it. Let's put this in place. That should do it. Let's put this in place. That should do it. And what we found out is it didn't do it. It made things worse. And he was a part of that. But he realized he was a part of something that just didn't turn out. It wasn't beneficial to the African American. I'm looking for him to understand that mistake, acknowledge it, and bring forth some new plans. You don't have to come up with them. I would truly tell former Vice President Biden, you don't have to come up with the answer, but please put somebody around you that will.
That's perfect. I like that.
I like that too, Tiffany. I like that perspective. Absolutely. And Kamala Harris is going to bring her everything.
She's going to bring
the sisters and the brothers, and I mean, she has the background and everything.
Yeah, she's going to bring it. I have confidence in this ticket that I would really like to see reform happen. And because she's from that community, she knows the holes. But what's good with Biden is we saw how Trump, he actually lit up all the holes in our system. Things that we call norms is not justifiable anymore. They need to be laws. It should be laws, not norms. Laws. Because people now, like Trump, can break norms, and all we can do is sit around and talk about it. But we need laws in place. We need laws. He showed us where we are very vulnerable as a country. Very vulnerable.
That whole structure needs to come down, though. The electoral college is something that is not needed anymore. There should be term limits with certain things.
On everybody, including our judges.
Especially our judges. It's a reason why you only have a president that can stay in office for 8 years. Supreme Court justices definitely should have term limits. Politicians in general, it's no way Mitch McConnell should still be in office. That's just the reality of the situation, no matter what, bad, good, or otherwise. You hit it on the head with, you're talking about former Senator Clinton was experience. You look at Trump is the literal example of white privilege, male white privilege, because if you take what he did and put it into another format, Trump being president is the equivalent of Dr. Yancey, you going into the military. You just sign your name on the paperwork. You don't do basic training. You don't go to MEPS. You don't do AIT. You don't do any of that. But by the time you sign your name on that paper, they make you a 4-star general. So, you have no experience, no background, no training, no way to do this job, but we've handed you the keys to the castle. and when you're talking about him, that's essentially what happened. He had never held any type of office. He was the exact opposite of Hillary Clinton.
Exactly.
He had no experience. He's a failed businessman whose greatest accomplishment was being able to convince you that he was successful in marketing his name. And he really thought in his ignorance that he could run the country like you run a business. But you can't just run the country in the ground and file for bankruptcy.
Yep.
There are actually human lives and conditions at stake with your actions. You can't get mad at China and dismiss China because we owe China billions of dollars. And there are certain resources that you can only get from certain parts of the world. So you can't just go from I'm not gonna do business with Apple today, so I'm going to go over here to Microsoft. It doesn't work that way. You have to have relationships. You have to have experience in being a politician. At the end of the day, whether you thought Hillary Clinton was right or wrong, you hit it right on the head, Dr. Yancey. She was experienced, just like with Biden. Biden might not be the best at everything, but he is experienced, and the smartest man, myself included, you guys are, I'm sure, the same way, knows that you do not know everything. So
That's
you
right.
bring in people, who where you're deficient, you bring in people for your support system, so you are stronger together, and you can effect positive change throughout the country. Because what Trump has done in the last 3 years and some change is going to have lasting effects for a long time, not just now. You
Yes.
know, that's what people are not getting. It's not just you can see certain things he's done right now, but a lot of stuff is going to affect you down the road. You're like, oh my goodness, this is horrible.
Yep.
You know, his inability to lead is costing us so much. So November 3rd, please, everybody, you know, please go out and vote. Vote
That's
your
right.
conscience.
It's
You know,
very
'cause
important that we consider experience because
yeah,
no other facet in our life do we hire unexperienced people. If you want
not at that level. No, no,
Right.
no,
not
right.
hire the neighborhood pedophile.
Come
You know,
on.
you want to hire a garbage man.
Yes,
Do not hire the man who mowed the lawn.
right, right.
You look for experience, and I just can't facet how the country came together and said that a person who has absolutely no governmental experience should run the government. That's like crazy.
But that's
But
a
that
latent,
happens. And you know what? I don't care what anybody says. There should be qualifications to run for president. There should
right.
be qualifications. You know, they have to qualify by filling out financial paperwork, or they have to qualify at the minimum. But there needs to be job qualifications. It should be a law. You have to have qualifications to run the government. Why? Because your country lives matter. An unexperienced man has cost us almost 200,000 of our citizens.
Mm, mm, mm,
United States lives matter. And so I don't think you should just be able to just get on a ballot and think you should run a whole entire country with no experience, because that means somebody's life is now at risk.
yeah, yeah, literally, and that's where we're at because that's like me sitting in your office and filling in for you. I just showed up and said, "Hey, I can do this. I'm Dr. Hayes for the day. Let me go ahead and assist people with their mental health issues." And I have no clue what I'm doing. I'm winging it. You can't wing it with the country because you have things. You know, you can't predict a pandemic, but you do have to have a certain level of experience and preparedness to handle any contingency. So you can say, "Okay, this is a pandemic. This is what we do." Or I don't know what I'm doing, but I know who to reach out to make sure that this is handled properly. You know, we have none of that right now, which is why you're right. 200,000 lives cost, just lost for no reason other than you have no clue what you're doing, and to fully yourself to even reach out and ask anybody.
Yep.
You know, he's not surrounded by the intellectual
No.
individuals that can handle the job.
Oh yes, man.
And
Oh
he
yes,
surrounds
man.
himself with the smartest people. We don't want the smartest people. We want the most experienced people
Right, right.
that are
Yes.
experienced in their job. And he doesn't have that.
Yeah. And doesn't care. He has no compassion. He
No,
really
he
Well,
doesn't.
he's
does
a
not.
narcissist.
Yeah, the truest definition of one. Yes, if you ever saw it. And nobody's perfect, of course, and you're going to make mistakes. You
Right.
know, but you at least have to admit the fact that I can't do this by myself. This is something that is bigger than me for the
Right.
greater good. I hate to say that, but that's really what it comes down to. Like you said, your oath is to serve the people of this country, not vice versa.
That's right.
I like it.
That's literally what it comes down to. It's not rocket science, but it is something that you having lasting effects on people. You're tearing whole families apart, and you're destroying the very fabric of people's existence because you don't care.
And he's asking for another 4 years of that.
Well, you know, he got in office with that's where systemic racism kind of bites you in the butt because he was pulling on the strings of his base using certain code words and terms and got people all excited and all riled up, and he made all these empty promises and has not done anything. Not one thing has he promised from the time he ran for office to now has he been able to come to completion. There's no wall. Hillary is not locked up. You know, he hasn't pulled us out of any type of war. You know, he didn't balance the budget. We owe more now or in a poor state and before he got in office in 2016.
Yep. I love this conversation that we're having, and I wish that we could do it much longer, but we might have to bring you back on again, BlackHaze. I mean, we can just keep this going forever and ever.
Anytime.
But I appreciate our conversation today. I hope that our audience will take this and learn something from it and be more involved in the community. In this podcast, we're going to have resources and websites at the bottom of the description for our audience to take part in, to become part of their community for change. I want to let y'all know that next week we're going to be having someone on. Someone from our community reached out and said that they want to talk about healing in our community.
Much needed.
Yeah. And so I want to give the community what they want. And so I reached out to someone here, and they're going to be on our podcast next month. It's going to be Dawn. And she's going to talk to us about healing, along with you, Dr. Yancey. You're going to give us another perspective from your bird's eye view and through your lens of healing from a psychiatrist's point of view. And I can't wait till next week. In the meantime, I want all of you to know to be the change that you seek. And until next time.
Say Nani.